That footage ended up going to 50 Cent and his production company, and it's kind of the centerpiece.
Sold to them.
Yes, the centerpiece of the documentary. So watch this particular scene, because this is where a lot of people feel Diddy really screwed over someone that he should be.
It started with a theory few people were willing to entertain, that Michael B. Jordan and Lori Harvey's picture-perfect breakup wasn't a mutual choice at all, but a calculated move tied to Diddy. At first, the idea sounded far-fetched. The whispers came from the usual corners: clubhouse, music, chats where insiders talk a little too freely, and scattered Reddit threads filled with half-hidden clues. But the more the pieces were reviewed, the more the story seemed to line up. Diddy is not known for backing down quietly, as recent events have made clear. As his world began to shake under the weight of Cassie's lawsuit, rumors claimed he raked into his private archives music. For years, he was said to have collected recordings powerful enough to derail careers.
Mother is 54 years old. Her mother is 5 years older.
Material now ominously labeled freak-off footage. Picture the timing. It's early 2022. Michael B. Jordan walks into the Vanity Fair Oscars after-party with Lori at his side, riding high on excitement for Creed 3. Together, they look untouchable. Hollywood's golden pair, glowing smiles, flawless appearances. Then, without warning, everything goes, music, quiet. Lori wipes him from her social media. Michael does the same, as if their relationship never existed. Over a single weekend, they unfollow each other. Music, Steve Harvey adds fuel to the mystery with vague comments about standing by his daughter. At the time, it seemed simple enough. Another celebrity split. Different goals, different paths. But according to insiders, that public explanation masked something far darker. Behind the scenes, they claim a private message from Diddy changed everything overnight. Allegedly, Michael was sent a recording, one that couldn't be ignored, one meant to humiliate rather than harm outright, because it was captured during a period when Lori was closely connected to Diddy's inner circle. It carried an unspoken message.
Diddy really screwed up, and I'm not referring to his criminal trial, which has him sitting in prison right now, but it has to do with something that happened right before he got arrested. If you've seen the Netflix documentary about Diddy, Diddy the Reckoning, which 50 Cent produced, there's some footage there that had never been seen before. This is a photographer that Diddy hired to follow.
This wasn't about anger or envy. It wasn't even about revenge. It was about power. Music, and that detail, many say, is the part most people miss. Whispers inside Diddy's own circle suggested he believed Michael had grown too close to Cassie during the period when she was allegedly trying to escape years earlier. As more of Hollywood began distancing itself, Cassie prepared to testify and federal investigators closed in. The question became unavoidable. Was this about making Sereno, one from his past, felt bold enough to speak? Now, for years, Diddy was said to have protected his power through music, property, money, loyalty, and leverage. Former security staff, assistants, and artists have all claimed the same thing: everything was recorded. Michael is also rumored to have been pulled into that system, with claims that Diddy used the vault as a threat by sending footage of Lori from one of his alleged freak-off encounters directly to her new partner. Shortly after, people who spotted Michael sitting courtside noticed something unsettling. He didn't look angry or heartbroken. He looked empty. In music, think back to those NBA Finals photos where everyone around him was smiling while he stared straight ahead, lost in thought. Just weeks earlier, he had been sharing messages about self-growth and love. Fans assumed he was simply processing a breakup. But those close to him say something shifted that night. His music, silence, they insist, wasn't about moving on. It was about protecting himself.
News Live reports Sean Diddy Combs is facing new criminal assault allegations. The LA Sheriff's Department says that it's investigating a report from an alleged victim in Florida. That alleged victim has identified himself as music producer Jonathan Hay in social media posts that have since been removed. A spokesperson for Combs has not responded to ABC News' request for
The alleged recording was described as a random act meant to lash out. According to sources, it dated back to 2019 when Lori was reportedly offering comfort to Diddy after the sudden passing of Kim Porter. At the time, their connection was framed as innocent. Lori was photographed smiling at lunches with her parents, Steve and Marjorie Harvey, in places like New York, Miami, Cabo, and later Italy. Images of Diddy placing a hand on her stomach and leaning in close sparked online rumors, including talk of a pregnancy. Claims her team quickly shut down. Lori dismissed the speculation and urged people not to believe everything they saw online. Now, with Diddy's entire operation under scrutiny for stories just like these, those moments look different in hindsight. The timing feels heavier. The body language raises new questions. Sources now say the Harvey family knew far more than they ever admitted. Long before Lori became a public figure, Steve Harvey and Diddy had been close for years. Steve even shared meals with him during that Italy trip. Back then, fans criticized Steve for staying quiet while his 22-year-old daughter was seen spending time with a 49-year-old industry heavyweight with a troubling reputation. Steve brushed it off, focusing on his marriage to Marjorie.
Talk about the filth that's starting to come out in the early days of the Diddy trial. This, of course, is P. Diddy. Surprise, surprise, he's a creep. Surprise, surprise.
Public appearances in his talk show, but people familiar with that circle claim silence wasn't about being unaware. It was about fear. And that fear kept everyone quiet. Put simply, Jaguar Wright has spent the past year calling out the industry without restraint. When asked about the Harveys, she didn't hesitate. "You don't sit at hat table and not know," she said. In her view, everyone involved was following the same Hollywood rulebook: look the other way, protect the image, and keep the money flowing. It sounds brutal, but consider what's at stake. Steve Harvey's entire brand is built on relationship advice, family values, and speeches about character, faith, and loyalty. Music. If it ever surfaced that Diddy had been secretly recording his daughter while Steve was publicly preaching respect, the fallout would be devastating. And if whispers of a controlled pregnancy or a quiet settlement were, music, proven true, this wouldn't just be another scandal. It would signal the collapse of an entire empire. What makes this more unsettling is the timing. All of this allegedly unfolded before Cassip came forward. Back then, Diddy still looked untouchable, sitting courtside, showing off his connections, hosting his famous white parties. Yet, cracks were already forming. Former artists had hinted in emails about dark rooms, forced choices, and events they could barely speak about. This year, people started paying closer attention when members of Day 26 broke down on camera, describing a disturbing message they received from him. At first, it seemed confusing, then, it clicked. Their reaction echoed what had been whispered for years. These gatherings weren't harmless celebrations. People were pressured, manipulated, and recorded without consent. Seen through that lens, sending footage to Michael fit perfectly into Diddy's twisted logic, especially if Hetrelli had recordings of Lori. And Ifa's former partner, Gina's claim about explicit images on his phone was accurate. This wasn't just about Ndinga romance. It, music, was a message to everyone watching. He was still in charge. Even now, facing the possibility of life behind bars in Brooklyn. That message hasn't changed. I hold your secrets. You can't erase me. Michael was pulled into that nightmare. He didn't just lose a girlfriend. He, music, found himself managing damage that wasn't his to clean up. After years of criticism about his dating history, he thought Hugh was finally with someone who reshaped his public image, America's sweetheart. Instead, he became trapped in a web of insolence and leverage. The Harveys moved quickly into full damage control mode. Lori stepped away. Steve's carefully chosen words guided the response. Within music hours, the story was set. Young love, mutual respect, time to move forward. Behind the music scenes, non-disclosure agreements, and a piece of footage no one was allowed to see buried the real version of events. Those close to Michael say he never truly shook the shame. The man who once lit up interviews grew subdued, stopped smiling, and kept himself guarded. Looking back, even his SNL monologue about his first very public breakup hits differently. He joked about learning a new language while training for Creed, and the audience laughed. But rewatch it now, and there's tension beneath the humor, like someone trying to joke their way past something deeply painful. And with that, the story circles back to Diddy's downfall. Since Cassie's case became public, panic has spread through everyone, even loosely connected to her story. Staff roles are shifting. Artists are stepping forward to give testimony, and there are persistent whispers that Michael's name has surfaced more than once, not as an accuser, but as someone who could confirm timelines Diddy is desperate to keep out of sight. That context explains why talk of a so-called freak-off recording gained so much traction. This wasn't casual gossip. The leverage appeared at a moment when silencing another high-profile Hollywood figure would have been especially useful. Seen through that lens, Steve Harvey's silence back in Clear's Throat, 2019 now feels almost calculated. Where was Uncle Steve when supporters demanded answers? Many accused him of not caring, of brushing it aside. But maybe that wasn't the whole story. Maybe he was shielding Lori. Or maybe he was protecting himself. After all, the man behind that polished family brand has dealt with public disputes, legal battles, and damaging claims from his ex-wife. He knows better than most how much destruction one secret recording can cause. While all of this unfolded, Lori carried on as if untouched. She spoke openly about a new relationship, announced fresh brand partnerships, and emphasized that she wanted recognition for her work, not for who she was dating. It was a smart move. Distance can be powerful. Still, the timing raises questions. Her quiet step back seems to coincide with the unraveling of Diddy's empire. Music insiders say she moved early, pulling away from the narrative before anyone else could define it for her. The fear they claim was simple but serious.
Gonna happen, but now there's an added element to this, an added element of drama. Diddy is going to speak. He has some things he wants to say to the judge, to the court, and he has actually filed a request with the judge that he can wear street clothes instead of his prison jumpsuit because he wants to look good for what.
It feels intentional, as if editors were warned away from certain territory. Fizz isn't unfamiliar. The industry has a long history of shielding chosen families. And if Diddy truly held leverage over the Harveys, coverage, music, may have stopped much earlier than it did. That could explain why no one from that dynasty has ever been formally summoned to testify. Still, Lori remained one of the last major public figures openly linked to him before the raids. And now it's becoming clearer that Michael may not stay quiet forever. People close to him say he's frustrated by how the story was reshaped, how he was framed as distant and unemotional, while a carefully managed narrative buried the real reasons. According to those same sources, he kept everything. Messages of voice notes, timelines, texts, nothing was discarded. There's even talk Fade's considering telling his side through a documentary of his own. Not as an attack on one man, but as an examination of an industry that prizes silence, appearances, and image above truth. Even without naming names, the implications alone could be explosive. Sometimes a single first-hand account is enough to start a collapse from within. And that quiet tension, the waiting, is what unsettles people the most. The list of public figures expected to be questioned or referenced in court is already drawing attention. Why are unexpected names suddenly being contacted? Why is Michael appearing on witness lists? That next phase may be impossible to ignore, and when it begins, it could reshape far more than one reputation. Of course, the unnamed women connected to the story will also need immense courage. Lori's sudden shift. Steve's steady, almost untouched smile during interviews, Diddy's legal team brushing off every allegation as nothing more than a media spectacle. Yet, that same spectacle now includes claims from more than 100, clears throat, people, former employees, artists, assistants, and insiders who say they witnessed far more than they were ever meant to see. Still, none of them directly mentioned Michaela or Lori. Their names appear to sit behind a different wall, sealed under another label entirely. It gives the impression that the real story hasn't fully surfaced yet. Maybe that's intentional. Maybe all of this, the timing, the recording, the breakup, was never just about a romance falling apart. Maybe it was always about control. Shame was used to corner Michael. Fear was used to silence Cassie, and silence itself became the tool used on Lori. The Harvey family, polished and composed on the outside, may be far more entangled beneath the surface. If Michael ever speaks, and if even one piece of that alleged archive becomes public, the damage won't stop at bruised reputations. It would expose how unspoken agreements, buried footage, and quiet settlements are woven into the foundation of Hollywood's most admired power couples. Music, as the haze grows thicker, the question isn't whether more voices will emerge, but who will be brave enough to step forward next. What happens to those who smiled their way through these moments when the records finally come to light? When the image cracks, music, what follows? Until that moment arrives, the story remains unfinished. Stay alert. Pay attention, this isn't the end. Music, not even close. And think about this. If you were holding proof that could topple an empire, what would you do?
Case, it's a much lower standard of a preponderance of the evidence, or in more layman's terms, more likely than not, the measurement we as attorneys typically use for that is 51%. And so for a civil case, you're just saying, hey, is there a 51% chance that Sean Combs allegedly committed these acts? If so, he would be liable. In the federal case, which was criminal, that was proof beyond a reasonable doubt, where he was found guilty of those two counts you mentioned earlier, and is serving a 50-month sentence.
Cassie's lawsuit exposed Diddy's fixation on documenting private moments, forcing others to relive them and storing everything away like trophies. She described being made to watch a DVD she thought she had erased while being reminded that he still controlled that night. Now, imagine Michael in possession of something similar, fully aware of what Diddy was capable of doing with it. The difference is that Michael is dependent on Diddy. He's unpredictable in that sense. An A-list actor with influence of his own. Word is that people around him have been working overtime to keep him away from interviews, encouraging him to focus strictly on his craft. All the while, Diddy's world has been coming apart. When federal agents searched his properties in Miami and Los Angeles last year, they reportedly uncovered far more than footage from parties. And that discovery may be the reason everything feels different now. There are now dozens of witnesses, a growing stack of lawsuits, and former employees describing hidden rooms in coded conversations. Yet, in certain circles, the silence remains unbroken. That raises another question people hesitate to confront. Music, why hasn't proximity affected the Harveys at all? Steve Harvey is meticulous about his public image. His statements are carefully measured. His family posts are polished to perfection. Lori continues to move through the spotlight as though none of this has touched her. If even a fraction of these accounts are true, that carefully controlled calm may bait a most impressive performance of all. There's also an uncomfortable issue many prefer to avoid: the overlapping timelines. Within just a few years, Michael, Cassie, and Lori were all moving within the same social orbit, the same venues, the same events, even the same industry photographers. That overlap isn't accidental. When viewed together, a pattern emerges. Who Diddy valued, who he could exploit, and who needed to stay quiet. Multiple insiders claimed that after the breakup, Diddy kept tabs on Michael through shared contacts, watching closely to see if he would speak. That context makes the so-called peaceful split look less mutual and more strategic. It wasn't closure, it was containment. This approach fits a familiar playbook: subtle pressure, quiet threats, and isolation rather than open conflict. Cassie's legal team has described a loyalty web so tight that fear and friendship, music, became nearly indistinguishable. Former allies erase mentions, remove photos, music, and act as if certain relationships never existed. Yet, Michael's name rarely comes up in those quiet cleanups. He appears to be set apart, either hidden or protected, and that many believe is no accident at all. Maybe he understands that if he speaks out, the damage wouldn't stop with one person. Everyone who stood beside him, or benefited from staying quiet, could be pulled into the fallout. That possibility makes the gaps in recent documentaries, music, harder to ignore. Projects like the Hulu investigation, the 50 Cent produced Netflix film, and the Channel 4 exposal circle the same territory. Yet, just before the narrative reaches the Harvey connection, the story noticeably Fedesto Black. Names go unspoken.
How about the documentary,
Scenes
man?
are
It was
trimmed.
just old news, and they took a couple of with the footage from Puff from the days that's leading up him to get arrested, and the incidents with the people from the courts. You know, the two people from the courts. So it was nothing new.
He came through. Make sure you know he came through. Trunk full.